And you are live.
Thank you, Pam. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting of the Finance and Infrastructure Committee for today, March 16th. At this point, I would hope that we could have a quorum call and attendance to be taken.
Will you do that?
I will.
Okay.
And good morning. My name is Rachel Cunningham, new assistant to Ben Barnes. So nice to meet all of you virtually and in the room. For the quorum call, Chair Balducci.
Here.
Regent Felice Gray-Kim. Noted absence. Regent David Jimenez. And noted absence. Regent Joanne Ryan.
I'm here, thank you.
And Regent Ari Santiago.
Present, sorry.
Thank you, Ari. We have a quorum, that's correct, Rachel? Thank you. At this time, I'd like to make the motion to accept the minutes of the previous meeting on February 10th. Is there a second?
Second.
Joanne, thank you.
Yes.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. We have moved that item forward. Now we have three action items before us. The first one, being the biggest of the three, is going to be taken by Ben, tuition and fees for the state universities and Charter Oak. I will now turn it over to Ben for comments on that proposal.
Yes, good morning. As you recall, we adopted fees for the community college system last month in February, and at that time we identified that we were still in the process of developing a proposal for the universities, and that is here before you today. I'm going to turn it over to Melantina to provide a little bit of detail in just a second, but I have a couple of comments I want to make. One is that in addition to establishing the tuition and fee levels which are included in the package, I want to call your attention to a couple of features of the resolution which are new and which would change some of the ways in which we charge tuition and fees for our students at the universities. In particular, and that is that we have elected to present to you a resolution that that includes some changes to the rates that we charge certain out-of-state students. So under this resolution, the universities and Charter Oak will have the option to charge the NEBI rate. We'll definitively charge the NEBI rate for students from New York and New Jersey. So that is something that we recognize that those two states make up the lion's share of our out-of-state students, and that we will lower the nominal tuition for those students down to the NEBI rate, which is, as you recall, 50% higher than the in-state rate, but lower than the prior out-of-state rate. So it's sort of in between, a lower rate. So those, all students from New York and New Jersey will be charged this NEBI rate. In addition, the universities will have, and none of them are exercising this option this year. I don't believe, although they're not doing it this year, but that will exist for the future. That the universities and Charter Oak will have the option to charge the NEBI rate for additional states or even all states outside of Connecticut. So a university could elect to charge the lower nominal tuition for students from an additional state outside of the NEBI catchment area in New York and New Jersey. Further, that the universities and Charter Oak will have the option to charge students from New York and New Jersey the same rate as identified for Connecticut resident students. You may recall that Western has been doing exactly that under a pilot program approved by this board in 2016, I believe. I think it was 16. So that this resolution essentially supplants that temporary pilot program for Western and provides a mechanism for them to continue that rate going out into the future. So this is the rationale for these changes is that we reviewed the experience that Western had when they lowered their out-of-state rate to the nominal in-state rate, and they were able to achieve significant and material increases in the aggregate numbers of students who were attending Western from those states, and that it was that was a boon to their enrollment overall. They had some other enrollment challenges in the last few years that we're all familiar with that make it harder to appreciate the success of their efforts with out-of-state students at a lower rate. We believe that and Melantina's presentation will go into this in more detail, that the net tuition that we garner from these students will not change dramatically because in many cases, students from out of state are provided financial aid based on their higher out-of-state tuition. If the nominal tuition is lowered, we will be able to reduce the level of financial aid in some cases to those out-of-state students, so that the net tuition from them will be similar. However, we believe that the marketing and sort of competitive value of having a lower nominal rate of tuition for those students is significant and real, and create some opportunities for the universities to improve their enrollment. But I will turn it over to Valentina to go through her presentation, which has some additional information on tuition fee levels that are being recommended today. Valentina?
Good morning.
Do you want us to share the PowerPoint from here?
Is it possible?
Yes, we can do that. We'll go ahead and put up the presentation.
Good morning. I am Valentina Pustai. Good to see you again. Today, we are talking about tuition and fee increases at the state universities and Charter Oak. The state universities are proposing just about $291 per semester or $24 per credit increase for tuition and mandatory fees for the academic years that begins fall 2022. Those increases are based on the university's recommendations, which were under significant considerations due to the impact of inflation and all the increased costs that are taking place in the country. However, the increase truly reflects a total analysis of what partially covers the additional cost increase at each university. As you can see on this slide, the amount of the percent increase amounts to just about 5%. That represents the system average and for in-state students, and under 0.5% for out-of-state students. Next slide, please. Tuition and fees at Connecticut state universities compared to the public four-year institutions nationwide are highlighted in the red bar, and the average is the green bar. However, Connecticut includes UConn, which has higher tuition and fees compared to the state universities. So it might look on the upper side. However, included UConn, it's real that UConn fees have higher fees compared to the universities. Next slide, please. We looked at New England, all four-year institutions, to see where Connecticut stands. So as you can see on this slide, Connecticut is just above Maine at the bottom of the rates across New England. So we believe we are still a good deal, discounted compared to Yukon, compared to New Hampshire and Vermont. Next slide, please. So this graph represents the dollar amount for in-state tuition and fees within our system. The CSU system average is $12,400 for in-state tuition for commuting student. The Charter Oak is somewhere in the middle, and the community colleges are about $4,700 for in-state students, full-time students. Next slide. This represents the out-of-state tuition and fees. Again, community colleges in Charter Oak, as expected, are at the lower end, and the state universities, even though nationwide, they are still lower compared to Yukon. We are at a discount of $25,000 and change. Next slide, please. According to the Enrollment and Tuition Task Force that took place over the last few months, which included the university's presidents and representatives across campuses from enrollment management and financial aid, we very comprehensive review study on affordability and enrollment management strategies were analyzed across the 4 universities, and this group truly pointed out the net tuition and fees cost to students. The few goals were truly focused on affordability, the cost to students, and the net revenue to the institutions. This slide in particular presents the cost to students, including athletics, which points out the differences among the universities who have Division I athletics versus not, not an athletics extensive program when compare Eastern to Central or Southern, who do have an athletics program. The next slide presents the net tuition and fees by residents without excluding athletics. So you can see the out-of-pocket costs to students are in the pinkish brown highlighted column at the top, and the green are the loans. What points out vividly is the differentiate among the 4 universities, the amount of loan that the students take. This data, this slide includes a lot of data and analysis to come up with an average. The study was done based on the fall 2021 semester of matriculated students. So in order to come to this analysis, it was a deep dive at a level that every student was categorized among where it belongs within the category. So looking at in-state and out-of-state, it's evident that there is a difference in cost, but also the difference on how the students pay for the, on average. As you can see, it's very evident that Eastern, which is far right The naming of each institution is right between the 4 slides. It's a lot of data to fit into one slide, and I apologize for maybe it's too small to see, but Eastern on average has a very low number of out-of-state undergrad and almost invisible out-of-state graduate students compared to Central or compared to Southern. The point of this is that the cost is covered by loans and out-of-pocket on average. The next slide, please. The net revenue, including the auxiliaries, it shows that the amount that's coming in is revenue from tuition and from room and board, which is the deeper purple on the top of each column. So those averages reflect kind of the net margin to the institutions. For example, it's even difficult for me to see on this slide the numbers, but you can compare the boxes across the 4 universities, and it's evident that at Eastern, the room and board brings in slightly more revenue than compared to Southern or Western. The dollars might be the same, but the revenue from housing and food, it matters.
One item, Melanie, that I would add here is that if you look at the proposed NEBI rate, it's 20, including room and board under the proposal. It's 29, just under $30,000 for a full year, so about $15,000 per semester. And if you look, you'll see that the net revenue that we have been achieving from our out-of-state students at the different campuses is lower than that. So I believe it's that comparison that makes us believe that we'll be able to implement the lower NEBI rate for New York and New Jersey students without sacrificing significant amounts of our net revenue, but hopefully garnering the benefit from increasing them. Could somebody mute these? There's somebody typing, and it's. Thank you.
The next slide, please. This is a summary of on student payment amounts. So that the average total amount paid for tuition and fees after deducting the grant aid varies between undergrad and graduate students. This table is kind of a raw data, and it requires more attention than a few seconds to go through. But what we would like to state is that the committee, this group, thoroughly went through the analysis to figure out all the differences among the 4 institutions to come up with recommendations. The next slide, please. I don't know, Ben, do you want to take this on?
Sure. This is the slide is what we requested from the Appropriations Committee, and this demonstrates what we believe is our financial need for next year. And hang on, let me move this little extra window that's blocking it. The amount that we believe that this, the total is $175 million, 123 plus the $51 million in the bottom right of each box. But just for fiscal 23, for the year that this tuition would impact, we have a shortfall at the universities of about $65 million. So it's in the context of going into a year with a significant budget deficit. Obviously, we've asked the legislature for their assistance with that. Those numbers do not include the benefits of the tuition changes that we're proposing here today, which we believe will add revenue to the universities in total of approximately $15 million. So you can see that we are asking students and their families to contribute more in the context of our deficit, but not by any means the majority, or even we will still have a $50 million deficit in the universities, even with the proposed increase in tuition that's on the table today.
So we're only going to increase tuition how much, Ben?
It's about $15 million between the tuition and the auxiliary fee increases for housing.
But it shows us $123 million in debt overall with the colleges and the universities.
Correct.
What happened to the $175 million?
Oh, well, that's a two-year total. That includes the funding, the $123 million from 23 from next year.
Got it.
And there's a $51 million shortfall this year, largely because of retroactive pay.
For a total of roughly $175 million.
Correct.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Melanie. You want to go to the next slide, please?
So our original projected cost for the CBAC was slightly understated because of the assumed percents in lump sum payments that would assume were not as generous as current agreements that I believe they are still tentative. I'm not sure that they are signed. But we are estimating for FY22 for the system an additional $73.4 million increase in cost over current estimate, because the increases is proposed will go back to July 1st. Next year, it's an additional cost due to the 27 payroll and the associated fringe, which brings us to just about $107 million additional increased cost to the system. 2024, it's not part of this biennial budget, but we had an early estimate for the cost. We're in the process of reviewing all the cost estimates based on a roster by union code, and will be finalized, I believe, by the end of this week or early next week to be presented to legislators. This concludes our short presentation. It looks short, but it's a lot of data that would need more time to truly explain all the analysis and all the impacts. Thank you.
Thank you, Valentina. Ben, do you wish to comment any further? We have...
The only other change that I would call your attention to that is, I think, noteworthy is that we have one of the fees that we charge to university students is something called the university fee, which is collected from the students but is remitted not to the individual universities but to the system. And the system uses that to pay for debt service for dormitories and dining halls and other auxiliary facilities that we've constructed over time. We have been very aggressive at refunding that debt and lowering our costs. We've also been reducing the frequency with which we go to market. So we're doing our best to control those debt service costs, and we believe and are recommending a reduction in the out-of-state university fee, which previously had been $2,076, and bringing that down to the same level as in-state. So that saves out-of-state students about $1,000, just over $1,100 each year. That is relatively easy because the number of out-of-state students is much smaller than in-state students. And so we're able to afford that and continue to meet our debt service obligations. So that's another change that makes us, I think, more attractive to out-of-state students, which is, given the demographics of high school graduates in Connecticut, is one of the areas that the universities have identified for attempting to grow their enrollment in the coming years.
What is the total, Melantina, for the 27th payroll?
For the 27 payroll is currently estimated, it's about slightly over $40 million across the system. Yeah.
Okay, because I'm looking down and I see where the governor's going to give us $5.1 million toward the 27th payroll, and another $14.5 million for the collective bargaining increases. So, but that still leaves us a lot of dollars short. It looks like a total, at least what I'm looking at, roughly a total of $19.6 million that he's going to give us toward the payroll and toward bargaining increases. Is that correct, Ben?
That was the governor's proposed budget.
But it shows,
February.
but it shows here that in 2023, that payroll is, it says $13.1 million. And
I'm just making sure I look at the.
as opposed to the 40 million, Melantina, I was just wondering.
I apologize. The table was put together for a different purpose and was linked to a cell, and that would be corrected on the staff report.
Okay, so instead of 13 million.
Well,
No.
the 13 is the actual numbers that I have. Hang on, I have the corrected table version of that table here.
I apologize. This represents only CSU, and it is correct. I panic for the moment, but this the presentation includes the system total. The staff report is isolated to the CSUs only.
Oh, okay. So that's okay.
So it's approximately $22 million for payroll and fringe for the 27th payroll, and it's $40 million for the entire
For
system.
the whole system. Okay, that's all right. That just wasn't clear. Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you. Any comments by members of the committee on this presentation? I think Melantina covered it well, and Ben, of course, cleaned up all the edges that were needed to be smoothed out. Ari or Joanne, do you have any questions for Ben or Melantina?
No, I don't have any questions at the moment, but I certainly appreciate the time and the effort and the clarity on the explanation. So thank you.
I know our friend David's here somewhere. Where's David?
Yeah, David's here.
There he is with his hand up. David, please.
Just two quick questions. One, when we looked at the tuition and fee raises for the community college students, a lot of them were covered by PACT for those increases, but that doesn't apply at the university level. So do we have an estimate of the percentage of students who will have to pay the full increase out of pocket?
We did do an analysis as part of our overall analysis. We looked at the number of full pay students because they are obviously students who pay the full freight. That was of importance to us as we looked at potentially reducing the rate for certain out-of-state students down to the NEBI rate, because in those cases you lose you lose a considerable, you lose revenue in those instances. There were very small number of full pay students within the in-state cohort, at least amongst those who apply for financial aid. There may be, there are students who do not apply for financial aid because of the financial circumstances of their family. They don't believe that the FAFSA is advantageous to them or, something they want to do, and they don't do it. But among students who apply for financial aid and took the FAFSA, I think that the number of full pay students is very small. I don't remember that. I'd have to go back and look at my notes to get the specific number. So I don't know. We have not done the same, percentage of students who have their tuition fees fully covered at the universities as we do as we've done in the colleges, largely because the numbers would be much smaller. Most students pay something for their at the universities. We can provide you with the full analysis that the committee, the task force that we pulled together, including the university presidents and others, to review the tuition study that we carried out. I'm happy to send you that full study that will have considerable information about at least the average amounts that are paid by different groups in and out of state and the sources that are used for that. So, but I haven't done the percent who pay nothing or percent who pay everything calculations by university.
Okay, thanks. That would be interesting to have that information.
I will share that with the committee.
The second thing, one of the tiles in the PowerPoint that was included with the agenda mentions the gray tsunami, right? That's to say the expected retirements, which is going to be much higher than usual. Has that been factored in? Because, obviously, people retiring are retiring near the top of the pay scale, even if they were immediately replaced. And that's difficult in the case of full-time faculty, although you have emergency replacements. Nonetheless, those individuals would not be coming in at the top of or near the top of the pay scale. And so there's a saving involved in that. Do we have an estimate of, how many full-time faculty, but also full-time staff are expected to retire, and what might be the expected savings in the upcoming fiscal year based on either non-replacement or, which is much better, replacement, but for folks beginning at the lower end of the salary scale?
Well, the financial projections that we included, I think, were based, and Valentina can correct me on the date, I think we're based on a pay date in the middle of this, around in January. So those have captured all the retirements up through the beginning of this calendar year, or, I believe it would have included January 1st retirements. So we don't, we are continuing to, the update process that Valentina described for the legislature will incorporate subsequent retirements that have occurred. Unfortunately, as you know, there is no requirement that our employees provide us with more than with any notice at all of their retirement, and there is nothing when they do provide us with notice of retirement, because we certainly do ask and attempt to prepare, because there's a fair amount of work involved in getting somebody into retirement. This faculty or staff members are able to rescind that at the last minute. So we're a little, my view is that we count the ones that we know about that have occurred, and I don't put a lot of stock in projections of how many future retirements there will be. It is possible there will be a large number on June 1st or on April 1st. Both of those dates have advantages for certain individuals. It's not clear to me which of those would be favored by faculty members. Part of me hopes it's June 1st just for the students and their courses, but we don't really have reliable, we have indications that there are more retirements coming, and as we get closer to those dates, we'll certainly reflect the April numbers shortly. So I don't know the overall impact of that. We will certainly determine that over the summer and make adjustments as we go. But I don't believe that the savings from, replacing a top step employee with a bottom step employee for retirements is likely to have it will have a material impact on our finances, but the scale of our deficit for next year is such that we would have to hold positions empty in order to start achieving the savings of the scale that we would need to address our deficit. We're hoping to do it in other ways, obviously with additional state support and limited tuition increases and possibly other savings initiatives within the budget.
And we're going to have, as you know, David, we're going to have two waves from my understanding, and certainly I would acquiesce to what Ben just said, but it seems like the April 1st one seems to me, at least the feedback I'm getting, the more critical one, et cetera, as far as payment goes, benefits go, et cetera. So that may be the bigger of the two waves. The second one, as Ben has mentioned, is going to be June 30th for the July, and that will be the second wave. And as he said, we won't be able to have numbers on any of those until after I would think, mid-July or August, correct?
Well, I know I fully expect that the budget that we present, the spending plan that we present in June to this board will include we will certainly include all the April retirements will be factored in, and I think at that point we will be comfortable making some assumptions about the June retirements based on people's notice to us. As you get closer, those things I think become more reliable. So we'll certainly have significantly better information on that question when we present a budget to you in June. We'll also know more about the state's commitments with respect to block grant and fringe benefits.
It would be helpful to have, even in August, an indication, the numbers of faculty, staff, and others who have retired, just as a comparison with previous years, because I think the expectation is going to be fairly high.
Yes, no, I agree with that, and we're beginning to develop a data series that will allow us to not only see those numbers, but to put them in the context of our, recent years' experience.
And last point, does the revenue figures include the HERF money that comes in for this year?
Yes, for this year.
Yes. Right, yes, right, correct, Melantina?
Yes, that is correct. For next year, that expires.
Yes.
There is no.
Well, it actually, a minor correction, we have gotten an extension. The federal government has provided a general extension on HERF spending, which is helpful to us because it gives us more time to close out our grants and ensure that everything is properly accounted for. But we are substantially depleted our HERF money by the end of this year.
Thank you. David, any other comments?
Nope, that's it for me. Thank you.
Any other comments before we move to vote on tuition and fee increases for the following fiscal year? Hearing none, I would just make a comment that, no one, certainly members of the committee, faculty, staff, like to see increases at all. This increase that we're looking at between university fees, the general fees, and tuition accounts for $582 a year increase, which is quite modest considering what we are dealing with. We're dealing with the COVID issues, we're dealing with diminishing numbers of students, increased costs in although not included in this, but increased costs in housing and food, et cetera. And it's a host of things that I would rather not see happen and not have an increase as far as our students are concerned. But it's a necessary evil, I think. It only raises $15 million, but to move in the right direction, it shows the legislature that we are willing to make a move when we go in and ask for more help from them, along with other things that we'll be doing with some consolidation, changes, et cetera, as we move into the next fiscal year. So with that, I would make a motion that we accept the movement on tuition and fee increases for the following fiscal year, and would ask for a second.
Second.
Thank you, Joanne. A second. We've already had discussion, so I won't ask for that. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Nays? The ayes have it. Thank you very much for that. And we'll move forward to the next item on our agenda, which is a gift of real property to Eastern Connecticut State University of 729 Main Street, Willimantic. And I believe Keith is here to go through and give us a brief, I read the entire report, but a brief summary of what it is and how it's going to benefit Eastern. Keith?
Or not Eastern, Quinnebog Valley Community College.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
I'm always saying, I think of Willimantic, right. I'm sorry, Quinnebog Valley. I apologize for that. Gosh.
And we have Karen Hynek, who's the CEO of Quinnebog Valley, also here. So if there are questions at the end on the program, she's available to answer them. But in brief, Quinnebog Valley has operated since the 1980s. The Willimantic Center, which is courses that have been credit and non-credit in the Willimantic area for the general population. In 1999, we leased a space, or they leased a space on 729 Main Street, which is 16,000 square feet, 14 classrooms, and miscellaneous other support spaces to support the program. And the program flourished. It grew to over 500 students, had multiple courses, credit, non-credit students, and many just general non-credit offerings. And the program was marketed quite heavily. And as into 2012, 2014 range, some of the marketing diminished for the program, and the capacity or the student enrollment significantly decreased. In 2017, we, as a cost-saving effort, Quinnebog, the Willimantic Center rather, relocated to Wyndham Technical High School. The original lease at 729 Main Street was $145,000 a year plus operating expenses. Willimantic, Wyndham Tech rather, was $1,500 a semester, and it appeared to be a good savings deal at the time. That site has not proven to be extremely beneficial to the campus. The population had decreased significantly since 2017. Dr. Hynek has worked at pursuing a more robust population of students at that center, and has a number of strategies in place, including current ones that are increasing the population. And some of the downfalls real quickly with Wyndham Tech: limited space, only 6 classrooms, limited use of those spaces, 2 o'clock to 10 o'clock, Monday through Thursday. Fridays, the courses are not, or the rooms are not available. In the morning, they're not available. Saturdays, they're not available. And also, Wyndham Tech is looking to relocate. They have authorized state funds. They have a new location. They've have an accepted new location in Mansfield, and within as short as 5 years, will relocate to a new facility, which will leave the Wyndham Center homeless. 729 Main Street is owned by Northeast Development Company, who their managing partner is Mr. Stephen Townsend. Mr. Stephen Townsend has been participated quite heavily with student success in Willimantic or rather in Quinnebog, from 1998 to 2011. He served on the board, the foundation's board. He was voted emeritus in 2012. He continues to be involved. He is, since 1999, has donated or contributed to 300 scholarships. He estimates worth $500,000 for Quinnebog students this year. He intends to provide another 30 or 25 scholarships worth about $50,000. And these scholarships are part of his contribution to the campus and to student success. And Mr. Townsend is also offering to donate 729 Main Street to the Willimantic Center for its continued success and Quinnebog's effort at promoting the educational mission to an underserved population. We did a financial analysis of 729 Main Street, the relocation, and based from Quinnebog's projection of students, we feel it will be cost neutral to be there. We also did a facility evaluation, and the site is in very good shape. There are some dollars through our current bond funds we will use pending receipt of the gift this year by July 1st for improvements. A little bit of asbestos that needs to be abated, a mechanical unit that may need to be removed, but other than that, this facility is in great shape. It just needs cosmetic improvements. And we are asking for the committee to vote to accept 729 Main Street as a gift for the Willimantic Center at Quinnebog Valley Community College.
Thank you, Keith. Are there any comments by members of the committee? I would just say it's a wonderful thing that we're doing, and Mr. and Mrs. Townsend, I read the report, have done a great deal out there. They really more or less adopted Quinnebog as part of their family, it seems, and this is a wonderful contribution, and I wish only the best to Quinnebog, and we are very grateful to Mr. Townsend and to his wife, who played a role in this also, according to what I've read. Any other comments? Hearing none, I make a motion to adopt a resolution for acceptance of 729 Main Street, Willimantic. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much for that. Moving along to the third item that we have, it's the reallocation of CSCU 2020 program funding dollars. Keith, I think we still have you on deck, do we not?
As many of you are already aware, the CSCU 2020 program, the funding stream has ended. It was a 10-year capital improvement program legislatively authorized. And within that program, at the completion of named projects, the board is able to approve reallocating the remaining dollars, the remaining funding to other programs or projects. And there are three named projects that I've listed: Central Bernard Hall at Eastern, Goddard Communications renovation modifications, and at Western, Higgins Hall renovations and additions. I won't read through the exact amount, but there's $2,397,000 uncommitted to those projects. And I'd like to have the committee vote to approve reallocating the dollars listed for each project to the Code Compliance Infrastructure Improvement Program of each university.
Thank you, Keith. And those dollars would be used for what purpose at each one of
Those dollars are all for capital projects for enhancements at the campus to be named.
Okay. And by the way, those three show up. Are there any other projects that are out there that may not be completed that will have excess dollars like this, where we would be acting on this at some time in the future?
Oh, I hate to project projects will all be under budget, but but yes, there will be. There's two more in construction right now. There's three in construction right now. Possibly two of those will be in front of you for Southern, their business school and health and human services. Within the next year, I hope to come back to you to reallocate those remaining funds.
That's great. Great. Thank you, Keith. Okay, I would then make a motion for reallocation of the CSCU 2020 program funding dollars to the universities. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much. That ends the action items we have for today. We will be going into executive session for the purpose of discussing collective bargaining issues. And I would just like to say that there will be no votes taken in that committee, in the executive session part. Additionally, there will be no discussion after we return from executive session to this committee. The only action following executive session will be the declaration of an adjournment for the committee. That would be the only vote taken following the executive session. Ben is asked to join us in this executive session, and he may have a few people who would like to join with us. Ben, is that true?
Yes, please, if we could, if Dean Dello Iacono and Anna Suski-Lanchevsky could join us. They were instrumental in negotiating several of these agreements and may be able to answer questions.
Thank you. So if those people would join us, as I said, the only action that will be taken when we come out will be to conclude this meeting of the Finance and Infrastructure Committee. Therefore, allow me to call for a motion to executive session. I will actually make that motion. Is there a second to go into this executive session?
I'll second it.
Thank you very much, Ari. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Thank you all, and thank you for being here today.
Hold on, I will stop the live stream. Okay, you're